then add it to UV. So we see it will become a 2 by 2 arrangement on his side, right? It all becomes twice as tall. Why? Because it's given in pairs, right? Finally, adding the last two pairs together is equivalent to the repetition of U and V being 2. So we can make this point 0.5. This works to committing a crime is living. This way it's rewound also. Or perhaps we can provide a coordinate for another image paste here. Of course, this side must be set to 0. Specify as 0. This side is 1. This side is 0. So the result is also 1, 1. If it's not given, then by default it's set to a value of 1 minus 1 and then added to the top of it. So it will also become that situation. Okay, I will start like this and then create a dynamic parameter. One controls U, one controls V. 1 meter V, the top is U, the top is V. Always UPER and VPE. The top is U, the bottom is V. Then assign it to the time position, because as I mentioned before, if not given, if the time is directly connected to them, it will stop and stay still. In this case, for the two examples, we have if a channel undergoes a numerical change in terms of keyframes, then it is a change from moving to stopping.
It's also quite common.
Let's roughly set it up like this for now, and then we'll go create a model in Max. Okay, this model has been created. Now let's analyze it. Everyone, take a look at what the model looks like. First of all, it's also based on the side face cut out from a cylinder. A cylinder, that's its lateral surface. And roughly given the number of segments in the middle too. Edit polygon, we change the edit polygon. Delete the top and bottom faces. Why choose edit poly? That's because once you think you've set it up and then find out, once I've soldered it, I want to add more repeating segments in the original work is rather tricky. So this can give us a return. This tool is quite useful. And then we can choose the point mode. Let's pull it out. It's small inside. Okay, we can pull it like this. Stretch it out a bit for us. The appearance of the blade light. Anyway, roughly pull it into this shape. What's next? Then there is one thing to note. The wiring distribution here is not evenly distributed. I did this on purpose. A sample of it. This part. So we want our texture map to be placed right here like this. A picture of an ink brush, a picture pasted here, so I treat it, carry out a translation in the opposite direction outward. So the further it goes, the narrower it gets. It will become narrower and narrower.
Initially, it starts off wide in this area and then gradually narrows. Get the gist? Then roughly adjust it. it should be fine. Once it roughly takes this shape, then there is something to pay attention to, which is to center it at this location. The center point goes to this position, so that by scaling wide and narrow, it can create such an effect. If the model you created looks like this, its center point. So if we zoom here, like from the blade's refining process, because at the start, I'll make the blade light a bit wider, and then refine along the z-axis. In this way, we'll find our blade light texture. There will be a situation of leaning outward and downward. Actually, this effect isn't very appealing. So to avoid that, we select this model specifically, select individually, export, import the engine, and then after importing, we come into the engine. This is the model, and then we create a new particle. Create a new ink light blades particle, ink and blade light particles. Create a mesh type data. Speed is not necessary. Launch the cycle once and specify the number to 1. First, an explosion. Because it is an ink and light background, it must be bright. We refer to this as the model specified model. Then the size. Hurry up. Looking into the scene, it's still quite vast. Very big. The cost might be almost the same. Then pass the material and check the override material box.
And then harvest the jellyfish for cultivation.
Hooked on the impression, not lit by light. Then we found this position is wrong. Let's adjust it. Translate this back.
I do beauty treatments, but before that.
Let me reduce the redundancy further and see. Then there's another issue that this picture must be clamp mode. Its edges don't need, those empty spots don't need filling. No need to recharge. You realize it's gone now, right? So we can give it a dynamic to make it appear, migrate to make it appear. I found that the material here should have been given over when we talked about it earlier, but it was missed. This approach must be given over like this. Add it here on this one, right? And then apply. Then take a look here.
No, right? So I'll start with an initial value of 0 to C. There we go. So the width is also about right. Next, we'll keyframe it. It can curve in the U direction, right? Let it go in this direction. Okay, let's go like this. This way, I don't have to convert the model. And of course, he also turned his head. If it goes out of the UV edge, it means it will be cut off. so we don't need it to go that far. Walking a little distance should be enough. Then adjust the curve. Adjust the curve. Quick to position. Stop quickly, don't drag on too long. Meanwhile, there's an offset in the U direction below, and then another offset in the V direction. Shift in the only direction. This way he will achieve the slimming effect I just mentioned. Once slimmed, it's equivalent to a curve. Tweak it a bit. I don't need to pull it that far. Make it smoother.
Roughly like this.
Basically, it's about making it change pace, starting fast, then slowing down to make the operation more comfortable. And then I added a add dissolution to it, add a dissolve effect to this material, right? My idea is to apply it to its opacity channel. Next, we continue to deepen this material ball. So for dissolving, first find the texture for dissolving and start with it. So you came looking for this square contact diagram. I passed it on because I want to do a soft-coated welding over here. How is a soft-coated welding done? Use loupe for it. As for this side, we also use dynamic to control the one at the very bottom, called dissolution progress. Melt, or call it intensity, either way works. So to match this picture, it must be monochrome, then connect it to this alpha location. Because of this, the initial value of leap is 0. Either A is 0 or B is 1, right? Then I can control it through this chart. To control its secondary method, that is to say, this chart of mine, I enter a value through the middle progress. For example, if I input 0, the result I get is 0. The result of inputting here is 0. So if selected on leap, it's choosing A. It turns out to be a completely black picture. Then, if I input the number 11 here, it's like this texture is inputted once it's good. Based on this texture, I'll choose the wider areas. For the wider parts, I choose B, which means white. B equals 1, right? B11 white result.
If it's a darker place,
if it tends more towards her, then it means that the result connected this way is essentially the same as this result. So with such a result, I'll give it different frequencies here. Connect over at the varying densities. Then I think this dissolution chart should have a UV offset for the dissolution texture. Work on the details. Then I'll copy this directly. And this part,
come over here.
What's next? In the end, it's all added together. Combine two panels and unify their speed on this side. Come over and then I'll give you this. For example, we won't provide here 0. The default here is 1. Everyone should know the difference between the two, and the difference here. Actually, the final effect is the same. It's just that the values of these two numbers are different. And then what next? Needs a space to control. The one above is about the translation speed from moving to stopping, and the one below controls its cyclic speed to move together. The speed of the cycle, we need to add a time. Next, add another variable. This thing is called the speed of dissolving rolling. Next up is V. Then give this cool fragrant orange to carbon. Here is where I'm now connected according to the plan just now. So we take a short. Let's move on to find the last item of dynamic here and control its dissolution. To make this chart look more obvious, I increased the alpha in this color a bit. And its color more. Make some changes. It starts off a bit grey and then by the end there's nothing. Here I'll demonstrate the dissolution effect. You can feel a bit of dissolving, but this dissolving effect isn't good. We need to adjust. And then I need to adjust this material. Let's adjust its solubility and its repeat rate, and also
that scrolling speed.
Let's increase the U survivability of this dissolution graph a bit. And then we need to make a part of this in the rainbow material. I found the dissolution effect a bit vague now, not very noticeable. I'll strengthen it, then multiply by 1. Go a bit harder, and then the result seems too bright, right? If it's too bright, actually, you can invert the values of A and B. If we reverse the value, then this side, if it's dynamic,
Let's take a look. Now it turns out, so I changed this 1 to 0, 0 to 1. It looks more obvious this way, right? There's also something else that is I've noticed. This tail is too long. It doesn't look good here. I'm thinking about fading it out a bit. What should I do? Right here. Let him process it a bit more below. Hello everyone at VTuber. Set the contrast to 1.5. Then on this side, okay, go to your little mushroom function. Here's a function in a round shape. Let me show it to everyone. There's a picture like this. I matched them 2 by 2, sync the colors into each other, syncing this color into the one above. This way. We'll see there's one.
So
Going back to this change, looking from this side, you notice, right? If there is a black and white gradient, it can add a bit of texture to this layer, a change in the details. Okay, so the dissolution here is roughly the desired effect. Then start working on the harder part below. That is the outer side. A layer that's fast fleeting with a highlight of ink material. Let's copy this directly. After clicking copy, we then define a material, then specify a material. Open it, then let's switch to another screenshot. Switching to this texture. This is the black RGB I mentioned just now that I used. Let's see what's different. The rest. Repeat that for me. Then this diagram doesn't need to dissolve. No need to dissolve.
Come on, go for it.
A 0 and then vitality to life. Make it quick. A fleeting glimpse. Notice the outermost layer, right? Then you can give it a color. We'll give it a brighter color, which is teal. In this case, I'll just apply it directly. It ends. Final content. And then this side is a bit taller. We display it separately. We found a very bright white spot on the outermost part. Can you see it or not? Because for this picture of mine, if you want this texture in the middle to be darker, right? The closer it gets to the outer side, the closer it approaches the alpha edge. There's a subtle layer, a layer with a slight white edge around it. This has a very interesting place. So this place is, as long as it's not black, with a slight white edge, then I present a brighter paper. It will shine through and achieve this effect.
But it needs to be thrown out. If I have this RGB picture, this picture, if in the middle, all of it, but if it's white like his, then you can imagine what his is like. This picture has completely blown up, right? It's all white like this, without any change in detail. That's why I did it this way. So sometimes unconventional thinking can lead to an unexpected result. So here I'll add another size by life to give it some variation. Then let it gradually undergo a process of getting bigger. Gradually getting bigger, this side also swings over. Gradually getting rid of the big impacts. I don't want it. Let's try a fair one.
Please give it first.
The effect is roughly out there. Here, alpha changes with a curve. This side of it seems necessary to uncheck alpha, otherwise it will forcibly snap into place. Roughly speaking, and another thing is, when creating max, I forgot to mention it during the model creation. Let's look at it UV. It extends out like this. So copying it out makes it clear, right? It means usually one picture is within this range. This range. So this picture is within this range. By default, it's spread to this length, right? If not, it means one picture might. This is how it ends up looking. Very long, right, we don't need it that long. So let's stretch the UV frame a bit during UV, right? This way we can form this type leakage. This kind of leakage is more of a situation. Okay, this is a small detail to pay attention to. Then next, let's hang the knife light on the doll first. Then we open the action. So I'm handling this. The blade light is mounted. Multilingual, special effects, then specify the socket's name. I won't create slots one by one for demonstration as it's time consuming. Everyone can position them by themselves once you know how to add and mount them. The first one is the P4 slot. It should be this piece. My place is quite messy secretly. It was rather casual when I did it. I hope everyone can put a bit more effort into it when you do it yourself. And then here, the local space ran out. Make it a habit to check it off so it inherits the angle after hanging. This way, it's okay. Choosing the wrong support. I'll turn it a bit more. Batch of 4 slots, not just 4. Take another look.
Something like that. And then the second one. The second one is a P3 slot. This is the first slot point for a good position that I talked about before. The second one. Then the third one comes. So let me tell you about the third one. See you later then. Over here I've actually scaled the slot a bit. Let me find slot P2 for a second. For slot P2 we can resize it. Why scale? Because I was in max just now. Regarding max, inside I hope mine there is a glint of the blade. Such a shape. Not the previous circle. I hope it to be flattened into an ellipse. It is based on its axial orientation. Possibly this V-axis. Right, do a stretch. It's clearly an ellipse. Through this we can scale, meaning we only need this one. Then you can do a manipulation here based on the slot itself. You must select the corresponding slot to resize. Then the particles hanging on it will also adjust in size accordingly. We have already set this up here.
It's already adjusted. And then finally batch it down again. Create a new one. Copy paste. This should basically be priority 1. Look. It's clearly an ellipse, right? Okay. It looks like this seems this way. Just now it felt too abrupt. Which image? It's this one. Just now the thickness was a bit. I think 1 is still a bit. It's a bit obvious. Not good looking. I'll just flatten it.
And then
Just to explain to everyone, is the tracks swept on the ground. How to achieve some effects swept from the ground. So the ground sweeping
Insult.
is actually based on such a material ball as well. Based on the material ball we created before.
Thanks a lot for watching.
This
See you in the
is
next
a soft tool we used just now. Total soft melting. The above is basic management. Basic ink texture. And then we add a bit of directional dissolution here. Directional. It gradually dissolves from here. Moving in a specific direction. How to do it? First, let's this side first deal with this. Bring the 4-way contact diagram over like this. Because our dissolve effect is based on this texture, and then we need a gradient effect. Pulling a gradient from this texture coordinate. How to pull it still? Component mask. Here we need a horizontal gradient effect, which is a gradual transition from one side to the other